You guys good?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. You all ready?
Yeah. Pro Fan Sports Podcast. Let's get it. Pro fans, tune into the program. Every single week, get the dope, fam. John on the mic, very flat too. Keep you updated, that's what we do. Pro fans, tune into the program. Pro fans, tune into the program. Pro fans, tune into the program. Every single week, get the dope, fam.
Yo, what to do, everybody? It's your boy John Altidor with Pro Fan Sports Podcast. Back at you with another one of my boys, Vlad, Barry, and today's special guest, Joy Taylor at Joy Taylor Talks. And as you know, she's the news anchor on The Herd with Colin Cowherd. She also has her own podcast called Maybe I'm Crazy, and she's doing a lot of things in the industry right now, an upcoming superstar in this thing. How you doing, Joy?
Thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on. Right. Thanks for being here. We appreciate it. It's
for
great
sure.
to have you on here, Joy.
Absolutely. I wanted to ask, right? So I know you've been talking to Barry about coming on the show. Did you come on? Did you come on the show because you went to Barry University?
I am a little more susceptible to berries because of that. So it didn't hurt.
Yeah, I was doing the research.
That's
I'm like, Barry University? That's hilarious. So I
didn't even know that. That's crazy.
I know. I told you I was going to ask her an interesting question about that. So that was it right there.
Yeah, you did.
I think congratulations is in order because you're being honored by Black women in media, right?
Yes.
So congratulations on that, and I think that's pretty cool.
Thank you. Yeah, it's pretty special. It's something that's important to me to, encourage diversity and, try and break some barriers down in this business, especially with, regards to women of color in the business. So it's nice to be recognized and, to be honored amongst some of the amazing women that they're recognizing this year. And thank you.
Absolutely. I think we're trying to kind of like do the same thing over here because we're in Boston, and the media over here, there's a lot of guys in the media, but not too many look like us. So we're trying to, start a little something over here ourselves. So that was pretty cool that I saw that right there. So you're on the Joy Taylor podcast as well, right? On FS1? Well, the Joy Taylor Show.
On Fox Sports Radio, yes, on Saturdays from 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern, yeah.
Yeah, and you're quite busy. You've been doing a lot of stuff. You're like on everything. I think one of the last things I saw was you were talking about Aaron Rodgers and the situation with what was going on with him, and he made a comment about the Martin Luther King comment, and I saw that video clip, and I thought that was pretty cool. Or, the things you had to say, I thought that was pretty impactful. So we're paying attention over here.
Thank you, guys.
No problem.
Joy, you have your own show on Fox Sports Radio, the Joy Taylor Show. As a Black woman, having your own sports show on the radio, I know that's a big deal. You want to tell us about that or how much that means to you?
Yeah, I was actually pretty taken back by the reaction when we made the announcement because it was nice to see how much it meant to everybody for me to be able to have the show on the national network. I mean, I started in radio, obviously, as you just mentioned. I went to Barry and I started in radio there at the student radio station there in 2007, which feels like a lifetime ago. I was actually thinking in the car the other day, I'm like, am I almost at like 20 years out of college? I don't want to think that way. I don't think it's that bad yet, but it's getting close. But yeah, so I started a long time ago, but I started in radio, and radio is very important to me because it's what I love most in media, because I've always felt like radio, live audio connects to people in a different way than visually, because if you can bring people in with just your voice, you're able to paint a different kind of picture. You connect with people differently than you do visually, because, you know, sometimes you can rely on the visual aspect of media for emphasis. You know, if someone's watching you and you take a breath or pause or something, they know what's happening. Whereas with radio, you know, you got to fill time.
Yeah.
You can't just, you got, like, if you pause for a second, it feels like a long time. So it's a different kind of work, especially live. So to be able to get my own show and obviously be a Black woman on a national network doing her own show, it was a big deal, and it was important to me, and really special to be able to get that. And I started in Fox Sports Radio when I came out here to FS1 too. So I had a Saturday show with Mark Willard on the weekend. So it was pretty cool.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Tell us a little bit about growing up in Pittsburgh, a sports fan, and seeing your grandmother and your aunt being sports fans. Tell us a little bit about that and how that got you into sports.
So Pittsburgh is a place where it's kind of like Boston, where like everyone you know is a sports fan, and they might not be a fan of all the teams in Boston, but they have at least one team that they're super passionate about, and generally they're probably a fan of all the teams in Boston. And that's just kind of how Pittsburgh is too. Like, you're just born into a city where everybody cares about what's happening with the teams, and the teams being successful obviously plays a big role in that, because, you know, Boston is a big city. Pittsburgh's a pretty big city. You know, there's smaller markets that only have one team and things like that, so that makes more sense. But, you know, there are other things to get into. So Pittsburgh is just a place where, you know, they wrap babies in terrible towels, and, you know, the you know, black and yellow is really like a part of the lifestyle there.
Yeah.
So, you know, I grew up with women as really passionate sports fans. So to me, being a sports fan was never really like, oh, like, she's into sports. Like everyone I know watches the Steelers. Like, everyone I know might not necessarily watch like the Penguins, but
it's a religion, right?
Yeah, everybody cares about the Steelers. So it wasn't weird, you know, and everyone has an opinion about it too. It's not a place where, just like Boston, it's not just like, oh yeah, like, yeah, it's the Steelers. Like, no, it's the Steelers, and we're either going to the Super Bowl or what do we got to fix, because we got to get to the Super Bowl. So, you know, that's just how I grew up. And then I played sports also. So I ran track and played basketball and volleyball and soccer growing up, and ran track probably since I was in like fourth or fifth grade. I ran AAU track, and then obviously ran for my high school, and then I ran track in college. So yeah, I grew up with a sports background, playing, watching sports, going to, you know, local high school games, which in Western Pennsylvania is a really big deal. And it not only gave me a background in competition, but also in, you know, having an opinion about sports, because everybody, you can ask anybody anywhere. You can go to the grocery store, you can go to the post office, like whatever and wherever, somebody's going to have that's generally what you would talk about. Like now, how when you meet people and you're like, the first default conversation is COVID, because it's like the only thing that is happening right now. It feels like, I'm like, what did we talk about before COVID? I don't even remember. And now I do. It just came to me. It's like, if you would leave the house in Pittsburgh and you run into a stranger and you're like waiting in line at the grocery store, you're talking about the Steelers, you're talking about the Pirates, or you're talking about the Penguins, or you're talking about the Pitt Panthers, or, you know, Penn State or whatever. But like, that was a common, you know, connector with people in the city. So, so that was my lifestyle growing up.
Wow.
I mean,
Awesome.
You're also the sister of Jason Taylor, right? You
Yes.
know, the Hall of Famer. So I'm sure, you know, you grew up in the household full of sports, right? Everybody in there is probably all about sports and stuff like that. What was it like, you know, having a brother in the NFL? And, you know, I'm sure you've gone to a ton of games.
Yeah, so I went to all of I was homeschooled until my junior and senior year of high school. So I went to all of his college games. And at high school too, but I was very young when he was in high school. I remember like one time being at the Wolverina is the name of the facility where our high school plays. But yeah, I mean, obviously didn't go to all of his pro games. He played for 15 years, but I've been to a lot of games, and yeah, it was really unique seeing, you know, where we came from, and, you know, his experience at Akron, which obviously is a D1 school, but not a, you know, big school, not a big name school. Now every game for every team is on television or at least streamed. So, it still matters, but it's not the same scale, that it was in 1996, 97 when he was getting drafted. So it was pretty cool. And then, obviously third round, we had Jimmy Johnson on the show today, and he was talking about some of the players that he used to draft, because he's obviously drafted a bunch of great players and had an amazing coaching career. And so he has a philosophy on the type of guys that he wants to draft. And, my brother was one of them. And he talks about it today. Jason was very undersized. He went in the third round. He wasn't really a prospect that people were particularly high on because of the position that he played and the size that he had. He was kind of skinny going into the NFL. So he was kind of an underdog on top of it, which was kind of the story throughout his whole career. So until he really exploded and became the star that obviously he became. So it was pretty cool. It's a different background, I think, to watch someone in your family go from, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania to Canton and everything in between. So when I talk about, especially things like coaches and people getting cut or traded, you just have a different perspective because you see all of the transition that happens within organizations when things like that go on, or when you're in a losing situation. The year, I can't remember what year it was. I want to say maybe 2008. Whatever the year it was, they almost lost every game. They ended up beating the Ravens, so they didn't go 0-16. But it was awful. It was a horrible experience. So I understand what, these players on, the Lions are feeling, the coaches are feeling, the anxiety of that, because you don't want to be a part of a team that doesn't win any games all season. Yeah. Like, not that they're not, and they're trying, it's not like they don't care, but it's got to all come together. And sometimes it just be like that. Like, you just need a break. This weekend was a good opportunity for them. That Steelers Lions game was awful, but
horrible.
Awful. But that's how it is. And then what happens when the coaches get fired? It's not, we only ever talk about head coaches getting fired, but when the head coach gets fired, the whole staff gets fired. So it's not just the head coach. It's all the coordinators. Yeah. It's all the assistant coordinators. It's all the equipment managers. It's all the assistants to the coaches. It's, they don't generally fire people who are on the administrative side, but the coaching staff usually all goes. Like, that's a lot of jobs of people that now have to find new jobs, and they got to move their families. And, it's just a different perspective when you see things intimately, how all those things come to pass. Because I knew people who had jobs that year with, within the coaching staff who made career changes for that. And then the next year, Cam Cameron's gone.
Yeah.
What do they do now? There's a new coach. He wants his guys in. So yeah, it's definitely given me a different background in sports and a different perspective for sure.
I remember, those Miami teams that weren't winning so much, but us as Patriots fan, we remember Jason Taylor killing Tom Brady every time. Ever. I think Tom Brady
does too. Tom does too.
He's mentioned as much, so I think that's pretty cool that
Tom actually wrote a letter recommending Jason for the Hall of Fame, which I thought was pretty cool because
that's
obviously
awesome. That guy should be in the Hall of Fame hands down. I don't care what nobody's talking about.
Tom tortured us for decades, so it was kind of an interesting. It's like I'm supposed to hate Tom Brady, and I read the letter, and I'm like, oh, that's really nice. I guess I gotta like Tom now.
Us being in Boston, we knew a lot about him because they'd write about Jason all the time in the articles. So I remember reading the paper all the time going to school. So his name was always up in our papers. So that was pretty cool right there. But speaking of some changes, right? Tom Brady left the Patriots, and now we got a new guy playing for us right now. And yesterday's game against Cleveland Browns, we kind of did a few things out there. What was your thoughts on that game, and what are your thoughts on the Patriots this year?
Well, I'm not surprised that the Patriots are back up because it's a well-run organization, and Bill Belichick is the greatest coach of all time. So it's, it was only going to be a matter of time before they figured it out. So that part doesn't surprise me at all. Mac being good doesn't really surprise me either. I wasn't super high on Mac Jones. I didn't really see the special at Alabama, but he's been incredible for the Patriots. He's really efficient. He does what they ask him to do. Now, he went to the best situation out of all these rookie quarterbacks, but so what? Like, you take advantage of what the opportunity that you're given. You know, there are guys that could have gone there and failed. So I don't think that's a knock on him. I think that was a very obvious thing, that he's going to the, you know, the best, most stable situation with the proven coach and coordinator and ownership. And, you know, they also did something that I think is very important for rookie quarterbacks, because if you look at all the situations that you had this year in the draft, the Jets, okay, that's predictably a disaster, but it's the Jets. You know,
right.
Like what? Okay, and I'm not putting that on Zach Wilson or Robert Saleh. I didn't expect them to turn that around this year. They're bad, but they're the Jets, so there's a reason why they're there. Jacksonville, again, I don't have any expectations for Jacksonville this year. Win a couple games, you know, put together some cultural moves, and get ready for next year. Get Trevor Lawrence some reps. So similarly with Chicago, they have a good defense, but that roster's not ready to win anything right now. So the two quote unquote best situations were Trey Lance and Mac Jones. We think that San Francisco is a good roster, obviously, but San Francisco didn't do what the Patriots did with Mac Jones. San Francisco went with Jimmy Garoppolo, who, I mean, to be honest, at this point, we know what Jimmy Garoppolo is. Now, I was okay with them going with Jimmy Garoppolo because Trey Lance was very raw. But I have a fundamental belief that if you take a rookie quarterback, you should be starting him right away. I don't want to hear about they're not ready to start. Why are you drafting them then? They should be ready to start in the NFL. Every other player that you're going to take in the top 15 in the NFL draft is expected to start, be ready to play right away. Now, we don't expect them to not make mistakes. We don't expect them to be an all-pro, but we do expect them to contribute in some way and be ready to play in the NFL. And I understand the quarterback position is much more difficult, but that's all the more reason why they need more reps. So that's why I think it's so important to just give them the team, make it their team, give them the confidence, back them up. And also it gives you a window to evaluate what they really are. And you have a grace period anyway if you took a rookie quarterback. Nobody expects you to do anything with a rookie quarterback. So you have grace with your fans. You have grace with the media. You should have grace with your ownership, or you're a terribly run organization. So that to me was really important. And I think that it's showing now, because in the beginning, Mac looked like a rookie. Like, he was doing what was asked of him, but he wasn't doing anything spectacular. He was still making, you know, some kind of rookie mistakes. And now he's really coming into his own. He's playing with a lot of confidence. He's making great throws. He's very efficient. You know, I don't want to get crazy about it. I thought he had a lower ceiling than some of the, you know, wow talent like Justin Fields or Trevor Lawrence. But sometimes boring is just enough. And not that he's boring, but like, boring can be a good thing. Consistency is a good thing, especially at that position. So he doesn't need to be spectacular. He needs to win games, and that's what he's doing. So I think it's really worked for the Patriots. And again, it's not surprising to me. They're a very well-run organization. And look, the AFC East, they really like to not take advantage of when the Patriots are down, which was not very long. And I don't even know. Yeah, I don't even know that it matters. Like, it was the year after Tom Brady left. Like, okay, you get a mulligan. All right? the greatest player of all time leaves your team at the most important position. You get a year to figure things out. And it would take most organizations probably 30 years to figure it out. So, yeah, I mean, I thought the Patriots were going to be a playoff team. And that's what it's looking like. I mean, the rest of the AFC East is terrible. Obviously, the Dolphins are terrible. Jets are terrible. And the AFC is wide open. So I think it could be.
Even the Bills are terrible? What you think?
Oh, no. The Bills are not terrible. The Bills are very good. The Bills are very good. I picked the Bills to go to the Super Bowl at the beginning of the year. I think that every team has a hole. I think it's between the Bills and the Titans right now in the AFC. I know the Chiefs are back, but, you know, I never thought that they were out of it. But who's playing the best, most consistent football are the Bills and Titans. And what the Titans are doing without Derrick Henry is what I wanted to see, and that's just really impressive. So, I obviously, the Chiefs looked great last night, as they should.
They did.
That was a big, big win for them, and the way that they won, it looked like they got their mojo back. I want to see it again. I want to see another one next week.
Right.
And
It looked like they didn't want to make interceptions because Mahomes was throwing them. It just was like.
But that's what they needed from him.
We're not taking it.
That's what they needed from him. That was the problem, because that's similar to what Mac Jones is doing. You don't need to do too much. You don't always have to do the sidearm passes. You don't always have to get the over top, pass to Tyreek Hill, although I would have liked it on my fantasy team. But sometimes boring is all you need. That cut, like death by a million cuts, is what the Patriots are known for. And then you have the defense honest, and then you can take that shot, that long shot when you need to. But if that's all you're doing is always going for the kill, I mean, we see boxers who are always swinging for the knockouts. Terrible. It's terrible watch. And they usually end up losing. So, you have to be more strategic with it. And I think they kind of pulled Mahomes back in, like, all right, let's just go back to some kind of basics here. Find some sort of, base. Like we don't always have to be up in the clouds. Like, let's be a little grounded in our offense. Let's take what's there. Yes, take advantage of what the defense is giving you. So I think that was a great win for the Chiefs last night. Next week will be a really great test for them because the Cowboys are legit. They are
for real.
The Cowboys are for real.
Oh,
they're them boys this year.
If they can look like that against the Cowboys, then I will be a full believer that they are 100% back. But they needed to win that game the way they did last night. And look, don't get me wrong, I fully still believe in the Chiefs. But they were struggling, and it was okay to say that they were struggling. It looks like they're back on the right track. But one game against the Raiders, who I think we all can admit are kind of frauds now, not all their fault. They've had a very dysfunctional year, which is very common for the Raiders. I want to see what they do next week. But yeah.
I think, the only thing that I have a problem with, I hear it a lot, is, especially on the herd, I hear this ceiling talk a lot. Mac Jones in the ceiling, but their ceiling's just so, I'm just like, if this term was around when Tom Brady was around, like the ceiling would be, the floor, there wouldn't be no ceiling. So I'm like, this we don't like, if this thing was around when Drew Brees was coming out, his ceiling wouldn't go very high. So I'm like, that ceiling talk, kind of throws me off. But I do agree with a lot of the stuff that you guys say, and I definitely pay attention to what's going on.
I think the ceiling thing is more of I don't know how, I won't define it for Colin. I'll define it for myself. When I say, I don't really use that term very often, but obviously we're talking about Mac Jones having a quote unquote ceiling. You're not going to see, to me, I don't think you're going to see Patrick Mahomes, Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson. Like, you're not going to see that electric, Russell Wilson type of stuff where you're like, wow, only he can do that. That to me is like that doesn't mean that you can't win. That doesn't mean you can't win Super Bowls, but you're just not going to see that stuff where you're like, wow, like that's some next level stuff, right? I don't know if I can curse, but that's some next level stuff.
You can do whatever.
Hey, right. Do your thing. Right.
That's some next level shit right there. Like that is what I'm talking about. And I don't know that matters. Like it doesn't. I don't know that it really matters when it comes to winning, because at the end of the day, if you make the pass that you need to make, it doesn't matter if you're balancing on one hand upside down and whatever.
I mean, look at Tom Brady. He's never had to do any of those stuff. He never had to be flashy or anything like that. And he's the best quarterback there's ever been. So
exactly. Now I have a firm rule that there are no comps to Tom Brady whatsoever.
I agree.
He's a one of one.
Facts.
God made him, broke the mold, burned the ashes, spread them across the earth. You're not putting it back together. There's never going to be another Tom Brady. There's no one like him. You can have similarities to Tom Brady, but I don't even like going there. Like, he is so unique in his story, in what he created for himself, the longevity. I mean, he's literally reinvented how we look at the age of quarterbacks. And I also think that's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't think we're going to see anything close to the level that he is. And now look, they're not playing great right now, but I'll give him a little pass on a couple games.
Mm-hmm.
The level that he has been able to play at for the amount of time that he has been able to do it. I understand everybody is a little more health conscious now. The medical field has advanced so much. You can recover faster. A lot of players are taking better care of their body at an earlier age. But what he's been able to do is next level. So, yes, you're right. Tom Brady is not like, we don't think of him as this wild, crazy athlete, but he does what he needs to do in the moments that he does it. And to me, Tom Brady is more mental than it is physical. And that's not saying he's not an athlete. Like, I think it's silly when people are like, oh, he's not that athletic. Like, it doesn't play an NFL football, the quarterback position for 20 years.
I mean, exactly.
Plus. Like, he's
Right,
an
right.
athlete. I think he's an athlete. Like, we can say that at this point. He doesn't have to have a six-pack for that to matter. We've seen lots of great bodies in LA Fitness that don't do anything. So, yes, like, I do agree you don't need that. But that, to me, is whatever I'm saying about ceiling talk, because sometimes you do need to play like that. And if you're not that kind of athlete, you're not going to be able to make that play. But I don't know if that's the case with Mac Jones. He's still a rookie. We'll see. He doesn't necessarily look like he's going to, spin off a Lamar Jackson type run. But we know Kyler Murray can do that. We know Russell Wilson can do that. We've seen that. But you don't need that all the time. So that's all that means to me, is that, maybe his wow factor isn't as high as some of these other guys. But maybe that doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean that's where I'm at. I'm like, man, anything can happen. If Tom Brady can do that right there, not like you said, I'm not gonna say anybody's gonna compare to that, but anything can happen. This week, we saw a lot of changes too. We saw Odell Beckham go to LA, and then we saw Cam Newton. He's back, like he said after he scored that touchdown and got a penalty. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think Odell Beckham can change what he's been doing in Cleveland now with Matthew Stafford? I mean, Robert Woods is down now, so he kind of has to. What were your thoughts on those two transactions over the week?
Well, starting with Odell, I'm really happy about it because I hated the move to Cleveland for him.
Me too.
For Cleveland.
Oh, yeah.
I just thought it was a bad trade. Like, I get it that you want to bring in talent, obviously. So I don't blame Cleveland for doing it. But if I'm building an organization, and similar to the Patriots, similar to the Spurs, similar to the Heat, similar to Golden State, organizations that have a consistent record of winning and being relevant and being competitive. You don't have to win a championship every year, but you have championship pedigree. You have a well-run organization, good personnel, good culture. The people that are in your building are there for a long time. Like, that's what foundational organizations do. That's not the Cleveland Browns. We're not talking about the Cleveland Browns when we describe that. They're a turnstile at every position you can imagine.
Oh, yeah.
So because they're like that, you don't know what kind of guy you want to bring in because you have no culture. You have no foundation. When we think of a successful Spur player, there's a type of player that comes to mind. A successful Patriot player, there's a type of personality and a type of mentality that comes to mind. When you think of a Heat player, there's a type of player that comes to mind for that. It's because they have a culture. Golden State, they have a culture. They have a tone. The teams match the city. They match the leadership. Like, there's a continuity to the personnel. Odell in Cleveland doesn't fit. Yeah. It doesn't make any sense.
Never did.
Yeah, it did not.
It doesn't make any sense. This is
horrible move. At
the time that he went there as well. We're not talking about the Cleveland Browns as they're currently assembled, who, by the way, are still getting their ass kicked. So but at least they are trending. They were trending in the right direction. Kevin Stefanski, Coach of the Year. Andrew Berry's doing a great job. So they have some sort of an identity now. When he came there, they didn't. And so what are you going to do? Like, you're bringing in one of the biggest stars in all of sports, not just the NFL. You got to be able to take advantage of that talent. Now, listen, Odell has been injured a lot. Whether that's Odell's fault or not, I don't ever really know. I'd have to know a player really well to know, like, okay, they really take care of their body and they just happen to be injury prone. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. But we know what Odell is capable of, and we know what Baker is capable of. And we've gone to see this for several years. It doesn't work. It doesn't even match the type of offense that they run. The numbers don't add up. It just doesn't even make sense. So it was always a forced situation to me. It's kind of similar to Ben Simmons in Philadelphia. Like, it's like, guys, all of us can see this. How can you not see that this isn't working? There's no shame in being like, all right, we tried, it didn't work. Doubling down on mistakes is what loses you your job and what makes you look incompetent. Arizona drafted Josh Rosen, and then they were like, this definitely is not a good quarterback. Oh, well, let's draft another one.
You gotta
Let's
learn
draft
from
another one.
You
We
gotta
messed
learn
up.
from your mistakes.
Instead of dragging it out for 3 or 4 years, all right, we messed up. Do it all the time in business. This product is terrible. Scratch it. Do another one. So it's a matter of aggression, and that's not what the Browns are. So that didn't never even make any sense to me. Now, him coming to LA kind of surprised me a little bit. I thought he was going to end up with the Packers. Obviously, the LA Rams are a very aggressive organization, and they have championship aspirations, and they are going all in on winning a championship either this year or next year, which I'm totally cool with. I have no problem with the team building slowly over time and building a good foundation, and I have no problem with the team being completely aggressive. Forget these draft picks, bring in veterans, bring in guys that we know, and we'll put this all together because Sean McVay is such a strong head coach that he creates the foundation for the LA Rams. It's not built really around a particular player. So I thought it was a good situation for Odell, but I did think it ups the pressure factor a little bit for Odell being in Los Angeles. He's now in LA is different now. Like, I didn't understand it until I got here. This is a different place. Stuff just is different here. There's a lot of stars. There's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of stuff going on. It's not Cleveland. Now, Odell he has a house here. He's spent plenty of time in LA. So it's not the lifestyle that I'm talking about. I'm talking about there's pressure on the LA Rams to be good, to win championships. And they've gone all in. So it's got to work. And I thought it was a good move, but I wasn't sure how it was going to work with Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp because it's such a pass-heavy offense, and those two take up such a large amount of the targets. Well, now Robert Woods is gone for the year. So now Odell is necessary. So look, Monday night they play. I don't have any expectations whatsoever. Like, he's been there for 2 days. If he's not good, I'm not going to overreact. You have to have some reason in these situations. So over the next couple of weeks, we'll see how it works. I think Odell is great. I've been rooting for Odell to get back to his Odell form for years. I think the league is better when we have stars like that. So I'm definitely rooting for it to work. I can't wait to see how it does, because it went from being a bonus situation, like a crowded wide receiver room, to like, oh, no. You are now a vital part of this offense, and you're going to get a lot of targets. So it's interesting. But I'm excited to see how it works, and hoping obviously that he stays healthy, because that's going to be a factor going out through the rest of the season. As far as Cam goes, I love it. I'm a big Cam Newton fan. I knew he'd be on a team at some point this season, because every year some team that is a contender either loses their quarterback or they fall off a cliff. And in this situation, it's kind of a little bit of both. And I was surprised it's Carolina, obviously, because of the way that it ended there. But that's why you don't burn bridges, because you never know when stuff can turn back around, and now all of a sudden they need you, and it's a place you've spent a lot of time and had a lot of success there. I think Cam learned a lot from being with the Patriots. I think he saw a different perspective of the league. Also, not being considered the starter and all those things, that changes you. So he's always going to be Cam, ripping the helmet off and I'm back and all that. But that's what I like about him, is that I don't want
Superman. Oh yeah.
he had the little Superman card on his hat too. He's Cam, I don't want everybody to have the same personality. I don't want everybody to do the same basic, quarterback speak at the microphone. I think you need different personalities. You need culture, and Cam brings that, and he brings a lot of energy, and he's a good player when he's healthy. So I'm excited to see what they do with him there, because they're still in it. Like, they are absolutely still a potential playoff team. They're too good to just give up on the rest of the season, which is why Cam is there. So I love it. And I hope he does well, so he can get another opportunity as a starter somewhere in the league, because I think when he's healthy, he's very capable.
Well, he kind of has to do well, right? Like, he needs to.
I mean, what's that? That's relative, right? Like, if he plays well enough that they just miss the playoffs, or they make it to the playoffs and they lose in the first round. Like, that's well to me. Am I expecting some tear, some MVP tear? No. But if he does that, which is what they brought him in to do, because that's what they expected, then I don't see why he wouldn't get another job somewhere in the league as a starter. There's so much need for quarterback in the league, if not a very, very high-end backup, which we've seen this year is super important. The backup quarterback position has become so important because now that the season is longer, you're seeing guys get banged up and having to come in and carry a team for 2 or 3 games, and that can determine whether you make the playoffs or not once you get your starter back. I mean, look at Seattle. Look at Green Bay Packers.
Russell Wilson.
Right? Like, there's so many backups that have had to play this year. The Cardinals. So, I mean, the Cardinals, I think, are the best team in the league. But, like, if Kyler Murray's healthy, and now Colt McCoy's banged up. So the backup quarterback position is very, very important. And matching the backup quarterback with the style of play that your starting quarterback plays is important as well for continuity purposes. So I think Cam has years left in the league. And if it goes well, whatever that means, for the rest of the season in Carolina, he'll get that opportunity.
Joy,
for sure.
Joy, we want to be respectful of your time. I know you said you had half an hour. How much longer do you have with us?
I have to get somewhere in about 10 minutes. So
10
if
minutes.
you want one more question, I can wrap it up after that.
All right, go ahead.
Barry. Go ahead, Barry.
Okay, all right, cool. Appreciate it, guys. So, Joy, wanted to ask if you could tell us more about your journey as far as getting to Fox Sports, and then also how is it, being able to work with guys like, Colin Coward on the Herd, and I also see you're sometimes on Speak for Yourself with, Marcellus Wiley. So just, can you tell us, a little bit about, about that, about how you were able to get on to those shows and get to this point?
Well, I started, like I said earlier, at Barry in Miami, which is where I went to finish school and got a degree in broadcast journalism. And I started at the radio station there. So I always wanted to work in radio. And I did my internships in radio in Miami as well. So that really helped me to get into the business because my connections in the business were in the city that I wanted to work in and in the city where I was getting my education. So, a big part of getting in the business and that they don't really tell you about this business is 2 things, which is one, that you're not going to make any money for a really, really long time. Like a long time. So it's just not, it's just not a business that pays well for a long time. Like, that's just that's what it is. I mean, even my first full-time job, I think I was making like $35 a year. So, that's not great pay. It's a full-time job,
Right.
but so it takes a while to get to a point where, this can be your only job. Like, I was a bartender. I had like side hustles. I also wrote and I also freelanced and, picked up weekend shifts and, it's a grind and
Hustling.
yeah, I was talking to someone the other day. I was like, if you notice that, you'll notice that almost always anchors in major markets, news anchors, are older. You very rarely see young people like under 26 in those positions. And the reason for that is because you have to be really experienced. There's a lot that can go wrong. It can be a tragedy in the city, and all of a sudden you have to go live on the news desk, and you have to know these neighborhoods, and you have to know how to, read your scripts. If the prompter goes down, it's like, experience is very important. And when I started in the business, I thought I was like ready to be doing the job that I'm doing now, like right out of college. And I wasn't at all. But the problem is, it's hard. They want you to have experience, so they won't hire you unless you have experience. But you can't get experience unless you get hired. Mm-hmm. So it's this like constant thing that everyone in the business goes through. So that's why your first job is very important to get, and to start making connections within the business and start networking. And the most important thing for me was that I knew what I wanted to do. Because I run into a lot of people in the business who are like, yeah, I want to work in sports, or I want to work in TV, or I want to work in, broadcasting or something. And I'm like, great. Like, what do you want to do? and they're like, oh, like, I don't know, I just want to work in TV. Like, can't help you. Like, I'd love to help you, but I can't help you. You have to know what you want to do. It's like saying I want to be a doctor. Like, well, what kind of doctor? Do you want to be a pediatrician? Do you want to be a gynecologist? Do you want to be an optometrist? Do you want to be a brain surgeon? Like, what do you want to do? Because those are all very different things, and you can't play around and like be bouncing around. Like, oh, like I have a little bit of experience and everything. Like, that does not help. Like,
Right.
I need a brain surgeon right
You
now.
don't want
Like,
to hear that from your doctor.
yeah, like I don't like, I'm like a jack of all trades. Like, nope, not what I'm looking for. So
Right.
now in our business, it does actually help to have a lot of experience in different fields. I've done everything, but knowing what you want to do while getting all that experience is the key. So I always knew I wanted to do opinion. I wanted to be a personality. So doing radio really helped with that because it allows you to talk more. You're doing it live. So there is still that pressure of developing your thoughts and prepping correctly and all those things because there's no going back and fixing it. And so that really helped me. So when I started in radio, I made sure everyone I worked with knew this is what I ultimately want to do. And so that helps, the people that work around you to give you opportunities, to give you more responsibilities. When you have the opportunity to do on-air things, they can bring you in. And I worked with great people who, gave me those opportunities because they knew that's what I wanted to do and, believed in my talent, and also knew like that's how you develop your talent is getting reps. So yeah, so I just kind of really focused on that. Obviously took a lot of other jobs to make money and get more experience, doing sidelines and writing and covering youth sports and covering high school sports and, covering Big Three and, doing NFL sidelines. And, I've done a little bit of everything and now still do a little bit of everything. I have a radio show on Saturdays. I do the Herd during the week. I have play-by-play on Prime Video, Thursday Night Football. So I still do a lot, but ultimately, my goal is to have my own opinion show. So everything that I do is a building block for that. So when I came to FS1, I had a show in Miami, a morning drive show on a sports station there called 790 The Ticket, which Dan Levitard made very famous.
Mm-hmm.
And so Zazzle and I did a show there for several years together before I came to Fox. So that was really that show kind of catapulted me into that space because it gave me a massive platform in Miami, which is a top 20 market. And we did a great show that I'm very proud of to this day. And it really helped me develop as a personality and gave me the opportunity to get in at FS1 because I had been able to, work those muscles so much doing a morning drive show, which was like a 4-hour show. So that's kind of how I got in the business / some advice for getting into the business and staying in. It's a fun business. It's a crazy business. It's really show business in a lot of ways, but it's a very fulfilling business because you're talking about something that you love and you're passionate about. And, if you stay with it and you're very passionate about it and pour yourself into it, you can really make a great career for yourself, especially now because sports is the last live thing on television. Sports and politics.
Yeah.
Everything else is like
Being
on
recorded.
demand. So like that's just the world that we live in now. So if that makes it a premium, because obviously you have to be in front of your television to watch the game. You're not going to rewatch the game.
Yeah.
And that has extreme value. So, just staying ahead of the business and seeing which way it's going is very important. But that's how I got into it and how a big part of how I was able to get and move through the business as I have, because I always had a singular focus on what I wanted to do.
That's awesome. I hate to do this, but I really want to know, I think one advice you would give, Black girls looking up to you that's trying to do what you're doing right now.
Well, everything that I just said, which is, make sure that you take the time to decide what you want to do. It doesn't the job you want doesn't have to even exist. Like maybe the show you want to do doesn't exist yet, but you know what you want to do. Make sure that you network with other people in the business, reach out. I mean, I talk to young people in the business all the time. I know a lot of women in the business and they're very open to giving back and helping other people along because we know how hard it is to break into this business and to, move up in the business. Be careful who you trust. Everybody's not trying to help you. It's it's just a terrible reality, but it is a reality. So definitely reach out, ask for help, but be aware of why and the intentions that some people might have for you, especially if you're a Black woman. And put yourself out there on social media, like build your audience, make a podcast, make a YouTube page, get as much reps as you can, and build your brands with the tools that are available that are free. Like I didn't have social media when I was coming out of college. I mean, it existed, but it was not what it is today.
Wasn't like this. Yeah.
Yeah, like you can get a job, you can start a career off of social media, off of this, like what we're doing right now. I know people who have just built their audience like that, and now they have podcast deals and have exploded in the business. So definitely all those things are important, and also be authentic to yourself, because there's definitely a pressure, specifically among Black women, this feeling that you have to code switch, or you have to fit into some kind of mold to break through in the business. And it's bullshit. And it's not, you don't need to play something for someone else to make them comfortable. Disrupt it. To be yourself, whatever it is that you are, however it is you wear your hair, however you like to dress, whatever it is your style is, whatever it is you come from, however it is you talk, don't be afraid to lean into what you are, because there is a pressure to try and fit to some mold, and the mold is bullshit. It doesn't exist.
You make it.
Yeah, it's what you make it. Yes, and that comes with confidence and obviously repetition, but you don't want to have to play a character. And I've felt that pressure certainly throughout my career, and it's hard. It's hard to push back on that, but the business needs culture, it needs authenticity, and it's important to be able to represent that and fight for that space.
Absolutely, Joy.
That's what we try to do.
It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much for choosing to come on here. We really appreciate it.
No, thank you guys for having me.
Absolutely.
Yes, for sure. We'd love to have you come back on again and be with us.
If we're lucky.
Right, exactly.
I'll tell you what, if the Patriots make the playoffs, I'll come back on again.
Awesome.
Oh
man,
right.
Let's go, Mac. Let's go, Mac.
I'll remember that. I will hit you up when the Patriots make the playoffs, and we'll do round 2 of Pro Fan Sports Podcast.
We'll send this exact clip. Like, remember this?
Yes.
I'm a woman of my word. I will do it.
Awesome.
I like that.
Thank you so much.
That's what's up. Appreciate you, Joy Taylor. You're the best. Salute to you.
Thank you, guys. Good luck with everything.
All right,
thank you, Joy. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Yeah, you too. Have a good night.
Bye, guys.
Whew. Wow, that's awesome, guys. We just got Joy Taylor to say if the Patriots make the playoffs, she will be back on Pro Fan Sports Podcast again.
Hey, man.
Wow.
I think she was a great guest. She had a lot of great things to say. Love her opinions about everything. Genuine person, goes to show you, man. If you're doing something, people will come. You build it, they'll come, like she said, right? And if you're still watching this right now, please make sure you're subscribing to the channel. Make sure you're liking, commenting. Make sure you're following us on other platforms. We're at Pro Fan Sports, everything except for Instagram. That's at profans_sports. We got content daily, podcast weekly. We're doing our thing out here. So we appreciate everybody tuning in. Until next time, man.
Peace out, everybody. Have a good week. See y'all next week on episode 87.
87. Jesus.